This song is about some people who came and got a rather black welcome. I think all things considered, some of them didn't do too badly.
Our ship is docked in New York town and we took our bags ashore. This was the land of the free, they said we'd see hard times no more. But when we looked for work next day, wherever we'd appear, the boss so proud would shout out loud, "We want no Irish here, we have Lyle Hudson."
In 1962, the Clancy brothers were in the White House celebrating all things Irish-American. A few years earlier, however, they had arrived in New York as three ambitious Tipperary boys determined to make it as actors. But they were soon drawn in to the new underground folk scene in Greenwich Village.
We were all escaping the repressed backgrounds that we had come from. And we were all finding this incredible drug called freedom. We were playing clubs on and off between plays. The folk music club opened called the Fifth Peg, and they offered $125 a week each if we'd come and sing in this place. I mean, you compare that with $45 a week for acting, you know. We jumped at it.
Oh, all the money that e'er I spend it in good company.
We started off with the songs that we learned in school, the songs we knew from home.
Alas, it was to none but me.
One night we're up there and in comes this young fella. I didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. He introduced himself as Bobby Dylan.
Oh, all the money that in my whole life I did spend, be it mine right or wrongfully.
And often he took almost verbatim some of the old songs, but he gave them a lovely contemporary twist for the mood that we were in the village at the time.
Forcefully. But the battles are done, we've killed each one, and the table's full and old.
We realized that folk music, as it was sung by the old-timers, could not be popular. I remember the old character that I heard singing, Brendan on the Moor, and he used to sing it, Brendan on the Moor. Ah, Brennan on the moor, he was brave and undaunted, stood young Brennan on the moor. There were about 58 verses to it. We whittled it down to 4, and we were rehearsing it. Pete Seeger was playing banjo, and I was sitting on this couch, and it was a bouncy couch, and I said, why don't we try and get the feel of a galloping horse into this? You know, Brennan, he's a highwayman, he's galloping. And he started Brennan on the moor, and then Pete, of course, brought in the 5-string banjo, and my God, that thing took off.
Brennan on the moor, bold, brave and undaunted was young Brennan on the moor. One day upon the highway, as Willie he went down, he met the mayor of Cashel, a mile outside the town. The mayor, he knew his features, and he said, young man, said he, your name is Willie Brennan, you must come along with me. And there's Brennan on the moor.
I'd like to really sing.
The way they sing, what way do they sing? I've never heard them.
Just give a great beat, tell me a song.
What, like what? I mean, give us a sort of an
like
idea.
Like, do you love me? Or
like what?
She loves you, what is that? She loves you. Yeah. She loves you.
In the same year as the Clancys were breaking America, Europe was in the grip of Beatlemania. And even in Ireland some changes were afoot. After 40 years at the centre of Irish political life, the father of the nation, Eamon de Valera, finally stepped down. But it was a smooth transition. The compact between church and state remained as strong as ever. But the new leader, Sean Lemass, brought a more pragmatic economic outlook.
Would you think there was something in the Irish personality which basically objected to planning and which you had to overcome if you were to achieve anything?
We started off like all the other newly freed countries with the assumption that freedom alone was enough and that in freedom economic difficulties would right themselves. We found out the hard way that this wasn't so.
When the Clancys returned to Ireland, they found a country ready to let off steam to the sounds of something homegrown.
Some of the older people remembered some of these songs, but they never heard them sung that way, and it was quite amazing and very stirring stuff. There was a big momentum here in Britain and Ireland for new music and new faces.
The Republic, they raise their battle cry. Pierce and McDermott will play for you on high.
It sort of legitimized it in some odd way that the great America had given them their nod of approval. So this kind of sort of downtrodden race in the early 60s was coming through this sense of, on the one hand, living up to this prescribed culture, on the other hand recognizing that actually there's something going on here that maybe we can take hold of.
And every young man that passes by, he can take a drink and remember I, ladly fall the dee, ladly fall the diddle little skidry little skidry little.
They were on a kind of different level than us. They were American, or they were Irish, but there was a kind of certain American thing about it, but I mean they were very good and I liked them.
I tell my ma when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pull my hair, they stole my comb, but that's alright till I go home.
The only thing that used to get to me, I wondered how they stuck those heavy sweaters on them on the stage, But that was the only mystery. But they did open it up.
Me ma when I get home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. Pull me hair, stole me comb, but that's alright till I get home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Dublin City. She is a coach and a 1, 2, 3. Pray can you tell me who is she?
They were far wilder, yeah. You see, we had grown up with the theatrical tradition. But the lads, are very different. The pub tradition.
They look like wild men. Had big beards, shaggy heads, great tunes, strident voices. And there always seemed to be loads of drink in the photographs, And so you went, hang on, what's happening here, So there's, yet, and it has to be said, that you knew they were cultured.
Right, lads, it's up to us.
And in a weird way, in the early 60s, the Clancys and the Dubliners, it's a bit like the Beatles and the Stones.
I was a day in Waterford, Baldy-Balda-Balda-Dee-Da-Dum. There was love and crack and port, and Baldy-Balda-Balda-Dee-Da-Dum. The house was full of women, Baldy-Balda-Balda-Dee-Da-Dum. And there goes my mind, Baldy-Balda-Balda-Dee-Da-Dum.
The Dubliners were made up of 5 strong individuals, but their sound revolved around 2 of the biggest personalities and most distinctive voices in Irish music, Luke Kelly and Ronnie Drew.
He's one of the greatest characters ever to come out of Dublin. You all know him for the Dubliners, but here he is tonight on his own, Mr. Ronnie Drew.
About 4 years ago, I was taking the land with me brogues on me feet and me spade in me hand.
Ronnie was very eccentric, with this incredibly strange voice, a really nice guitar style, and good songs.
He had that flamenco influence. There's a term in flamenco singing called cante hondo. Now, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, or even if I had the right term, but I think it means deep singing. It's from deep within you. And Ronnie had that in abundance.
Well, the first thing they gave me, it was a red coat with a white strap of leather to tie round me throat. They gave me a queer thing, and I asked what was that, and they told me,
While Ronnie Drew had emerged from the literary pub scene, Luke Kelly had fled the hardships of the mid-50s Dublin tenements and had developed as a singer on the British folk club circuit.
In 1841, me corduroy breeches I put on. Me corduroy breeches I put on to work upon the railway, I'm weary of the railway, poor Paddy works on the railway. In 1842, from Hartlepool I moved to Crewe, and I found myself a job to do, working on the railway. I was wearing corduroy bridges, digging ditches, pulling switches, dodging hitches. I was working on the railway.
Luke was the great communist, you see. And I wouldn't have been a communist, but we were going for the same. I had the same things, you know. And I would argue with Luke and I'd say, if it's such a great regime, how come they can't leave the country, you see? That was my big problem with communism.
Once actually said to me, folk song is propaganda. And I think that was the point where I veered in a different direction.